Hi everyone, welcome to week 2 of English 124, writing about literature. So, last time I talked about how to write an argument, and this time we are going to continue looking at short fiction and writing short literary arguments about what we're reading. So, we have 3 stories for this week. I picked these stories because the lecture notes cover the short fiction, literary elements, and devices, part 1. And a few of the things that I talk about in there are plot, conflict, and characterization. These are really basic building blocks that most stories, or most good stories, contain. Every story has a plot, the stuff that happens. Every story has conflict to drive that plot forward. And in most stories, you have character arcs where the characterization of the people in the story is quite important, and you're going to see changes to the characters and how they develop and maybe don't change by the end of the story. So your readings for this week: The Monkey's Paw, Lamb to Slaughter, and Bernice Bobs Her Hair. The Monkey's Paw is a story that's sometimes taught to younger children, which is interesting because it's very dark. It's a horror story where a lot of the horror and gore kind of take place off page, so that might be why. But I chose it for you because the plot structure is really interesting. It's all about the number 3. That's a repeating element, otherwise known as a motif, in the story. And we have this repeating element of three wishes, 3 curses, 3 people in a family throughout the story. And the plot really takes on this 3-act structure as well. So we have the narrative exposition and kind of the rising action. We have the rising action and the climax, and then we have the falling action and the resolution. Typically, that's what you'll see in a 3-act play or TV show or a story. Here, that number 3 is going to be kind of important. So look at for how the plot is structured. In A Lamb to Slaughter, I chose that story because of the characterization. We have a woman who is learning something about her husband for the first time, and what he tells her, again, is off page, so we don't exactly see what he says, but you can kind of read between the lines and figure it out. And what she does in reaction to that news is quite startling, and it's very interesting because in some ways she's a very likable character. She's kind of a typical 1950s housewife, and she just dotes on her husband all the time. And in other ways, the things that she's doing are very unlikable. And so you have this conflict that the reader feels, this tension, based on what this character is doing. The Monkey's Paw is what we call a plot-driven story. It's really driven by those plot points, and the action that happens could happen to almost any family. The Lamb to Slaughter is really a character-driven story. The events that happen only happen because you have a certain type of personality doing these actions. So it's kind of interesting that you want her to succeed even though she might not be the most likable person. Bernice Bobs Her Hair I chose because it has a different type of conflict. The conflict here isn't as obvious as The Monkey's Paw or Lamb to Slaughter, but you have some really subtle characterization that's driving that conflict forward. So it's 2 teenage girls, one of whom is very popular and well liked, and one of whom is kind of a drip and kind of a nerd, and nobody really likes her. So Bernice starts talking about bobbing her hair. The story is written in the 1920s, so bobbing your hair would mean like cutting it really short, and at that point in time, it was a little bit risque and scandalous to not have your hair like down and long or pulled up. To bob it and to do something different was a little bit daring. Kind of like, I don't know if you were gonna color your hair pink and wear a mini skirt into like a high school class. Maybe that wouldn't go over so well with some people, and maybe some people would be like, whatever. But we don't quite have an equivalent because Victorians thought about their hair very differently. So you're going to be reading and talking about those stories. Make sure that you watch the lecture about the literary elements and have a better idea of how authors use those. The journal is on the 3 stories. And then I also have for you this week MLA citation review. So this class, we do MLA citation, having a works cited page as well as in-text citations. There's short videos on both. And then there's an MLA review quiz where basically I just want to make sure that you remember how to cite things from your previous classes. So that's it for this week. I can't wait to see your thoughts on the stories. I think that they're all kind of fun in different ways. So I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Thanks, everyone.